At society as a whole, not just in Sri Lanka but globally, talking about menstruation as a topic is also a bit taboo, right? And then women, for a large part, we live in a very patriarchal society, especially in the rural areas. In Colombo, we live in this bubble, but especially in rural areas, it's a very patriarchal society. And women largely are told to keep the pain to themselves. When you menstruate, you do so silently, and you bear the pain and you go on with your life as if nothing has happened. So many women are affected by this pain, but they just tend to bear it. And like Professor Hemantha said, you should not have to bear this pain, skip out on school, skip out on work, for something that happens every month. So that is definitely one aspect of it. There's a lot of hush-hush talk about it, but nobody actually wants to address it. And coming forward as a patient to a doctor, again, a lot of doctors, a lot of OBGYNs are largely male as well. I know my goodness, but there is a large percentage are male, and menstruators are scared to approach them, you know, and they have for a large time got their symptoms dismissed because again, it's a symptom, it's not a sign. Nobody can see a lump or a bump and say, yes, there is a problem. It's a symptom that has to be described by a woman, and sometimes not, even midwives, nurses, they do disregard your symptoms. And they say, just deal with it, just get on with your life. Every woman goes through this, right? So it's a society thing as well. Another thing again is doctors, I think, even though it is common 1 in 10, when it comes to period pain, a lot of it is disregarded. Myself as a patient once, I was not given proper investigations. I wasn't allowed to have a transvaginal scan because I was unmarried at that time. And so I had to resort to transabdominal scan. So even as a medical student at that point of time, I was unable to get clear investigations to find out why I had this pain, why do I have to go through it every month. Because again, society, we you know, because of virginity and that constraint, they don't want to do a transvaginal scan on someone who's unmarried, definitely not an adolescent. So for a lot of schoolgirls, they have to bear this pain. So it's a huge, there are many factors that affect a delay in diagnosis, partly because of society, partly also because of healthcare professionals.
So there's a lot to unpack in what you just mentioned, Doctor. There's obviously a massive cultural element to this. We obviously come from a conservative culture. There are cultural norms that we play into maybe early diagnosis. So with all of this being said, Professor Hemantha, with you being in this for a while, do you see a change in the conversation? Do you see more people coming forward now versus some time back? Has the statistics changed?
I think the people will look for somebody who listens to them. And I mean, I have to differ from you because the gender of the person might not matter if they have confidence that the person will listen. You know? So I think people will kind of find that kind of thing. But I can't tell you offhand whether that there is an openness. I can't see any reason to say there it's been more open and that there is more receptivity to it.
Rashan, this is a good segue to kind of come to you with this question. I think we've spoken a lot about this with both these doctors mentioning there is a lack of openness, there is a lack of dialogue. There's also cultural barriers. You're talking about this. With having said all of this, what made you come forward and fight for this? What was your reason to kind of be a champion for change? What prompted you? What gave you the courage? So we'd just love to hear your thoughts and your story.
Sure, thanks for that question, Sashin. So I had my personal journey with endometriosis goes back to 2010. That was when I was diagnosed. But my school friends here will remember since my school days, I have had immense problems with my periods. Debilitating pain, I would miss exams, be taken to the sick room, I would be fainting, my mother would have to come and pick me up. But it was never really known for a teacher to tell the mother, look, I think there's something wrong with your daughter, why don't you go check it? That is because there's lack of awareness. So it went on like this, and finally when I couldn't take it anymore, I think I had just turned 30, I went to see, in this case, a lady gynecologist, and she asked me just one question. She asked me, do you have food from out, like restaurant food? I said, of course, weekends and all, of course I do. And then she said, then you're wasting my time and your time. She said, what you have is, a little bit of gastritis or maybe a bit of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And she said, you're a perfectly healthy girl. And I go home and this continues. And finally, when I was in pain throughout the month, throughout the year, where I had to quit my job, I was a practicing lawyer, I couldn't go to courts, and I knew something was wrong. Sometimes you know your body best. I knew something was wrong, and then of course I was fainting by this time. I was bedbound at the time. This is 2010, and then finally we went to 2 gynecologists. I wasn't diagnosed, but the 3rd gynecologist, unfortunately, is not with us anymore, Dr. Sarath Vijayamanna. He said, let me run a scan on you, and then he said, I suspect that you have endometriosis. And then from there onwards, of course, I had to go through I don't know how to pronounce it, a laparotomy, because it was so far gone. And then they had to sort of, my ovaries and bowel and bladder were stuck together. They had to bring in a bowel surgeon also. And they said I was lucky that they could save my bowel, I think. Otherwise I would have to be in a bag. So it was that bad, and that was all because of lack of awareness. And then of course, after the surgery, they told me, you're fine, you're just fine, eat a lot of greens and you'll be okay. They never told me that it could come back. And it came back in 2013. And once again, when I was sitting for my master's in law, I couldn't be there for the graduation. I was in Malaysia doing my 2nd surgery. And that's because I have frozen pelvis. Everything was stuck together, and that surgeon said I tried to see how I could help her with her frozen pelvis, but I'm not satisfied. And he was a top surgeon. So he said, it's a very complicated case, and it's because of timely intervention. So of course, a few years down the line, so from 2013, then while taking hormone tablets and I induced menopause, which I think helped my endometriosis for sure. Of course, I had different side effects, migraines, mood swings, bloating, this and that. It was hell. It was hell. I found some very good Ayurvedic treatment, and to date, I take a hybrid of Western and Ayurveda, and my case is managed, thankfully. That's when I decided I will put this foundation together. I was inspired by my friends who are there, who introduced me to Padma Lakshmi. She is a huge voice for endometriosis in the US. And with that, I put this foundation together. It's been 2 years. So my only wish is that we can advocate for early symptom recognition and timely intervention. If I could drive the awareness piece in that aspect and leave the technical part to the experts here, then I think it would be a dream fulfilled. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think we need to recognize the courage that you've had to kind of come forward and talk about this champion